Hello, and welcome to day 5 of the Make a Song in 5 Days series. Today we're going to take our newly arranged song and mix it, do some final touches, and go ahead and export it so we can share it with our friends. Let's get into it. Alright, so here is what we have so far. I'll just go and do the beginning of the drop here so we can just refresh our memory a little bit. Awesome. Okay, so now what we're going to do is pull up the channel rack. We're going to make sure that there are no numbers showing here. So I'm just going to use my scroll wheel to turn the numbers into just these 3 lines here. I'm just going to go across the kick, clap, the hats, and the rest of these here, just to decode these and put them back at a, for lack of a better term, null level, so that everything will show up in order in our mixing track. Now, I'm going to select the kick. I'm going to left click, hold, and drag all the way down on all of our instruments, so from the kick to the tom. And then what I'm going to do is press Control L. Now, do you see that all of these in the mixing track are now lined up with what is on our channel rack? So whatever we do to any of the instruments in the mixing track, it will affect the channel rack instruments and therefore affect the instruments in the playlist. All right. Now, with that being said, we can go ahead and readjust the volume levels. What I'm going to do is right click and click reset on all of these. This is so that we'll be able to fully adjust the volume in the mixing track compared to what we've done in the channel rack. Right, and it returns them to their default settings. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to go in order here. Now, my audio engineer husband taught me how to do this, and it has been a game changer. So what I'm going to do is hold Control and Shift and drag on all of these instruments in the mixing track, the mixing rack over here. And then I am going to drag the knobs over here all the way down to 0. The first thing we're going to do is adjust the volume levels so that the sounds line up a little bit better. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to right click on the top bar of the playlist. We'll minimize this so we can see it. And I'm just going to select the drop. We're going to right click and drag the second half of the drop since it has all of the instruments inside it. We'll get a more accurate value when it comes to where all of the instruments lie when it comes to volume. All right, now selecting this makes it a loop. Now we're not going to be able to hear anything because all of these knobs are at 0. But what we're going to do, we're going to select the kick here. We'll make it smaller. Drag this out a little bit. Then we're going to press play. And as we're pressing play, we're going to drag the kick up. Okay. I'm going to bring the kick up to until like it starts to show a little bit of orange. And Control S this to save it. I'm going to bring up the clap. So it's about halfway between the kick and the floor. Now that's still a little loud. We're just going to bring that down. I always find that I overshoot the clap and it turns out way louder in the final mix than I think it is, so I try to compensate for that. All right, now we can hear the kick and the clap. All right. Now I'm going to just drag up the rest of the drums one by one. So the first thing I like to do is, first of all, bring the kick up, that kind of tells me where the bass line is for the rest of the volume. Then I like to bring up the clap, and then the hats, and any other percussion. Then I like to bring up the volume of the basses, and then do the chords or any any middle parts. Like just I like to do the chords, and then I like to do the melodies and leads. All right, perfect. Now I like just bring them up slowly as you play through them, and then just stop bringing up the knob whenever it starts sounding, whenever you think it fits nicely into the mix. I don't really know much of a solution for this one, but if need be, there are more in-depth mixing tutorials. You can look up Joe Gilder as well. All right, let's try this. And I'm also taking a look at the master here. The master track is showing me where all of the instruments are going up. We don't want this in the red zone at all. Otherwise, if it's in the red zone, it starts to distort and it makes it sound bad. That's what's known as clipping. Okay, that open hat still is pretty loud. Let's bring this down. Okay, let's bring up the basses now. So what I'm thinking about here is I want to be able to hear the instruments individually, but not so much that it's overpowering the rest of the instruments inside the mix. So when it comes to the basses, I can hear the punchiness of the simple bass, but I can also hear the wideness of the second bass here. I kind of want them to blend together as if they're one instrument. I'm gonna bring this kick down a little bit. Also the clap. Now let's bring up the sub bass. Now, I just want to preface this by saying I have way more to learn in the mixing sector. I hope this is at least a starting point for you to get you started. Okay, let's start messing with the chords here. Go into the melody here. And also notice how it loops within the red bar that's selected here. Looping, I'd explain it as it taking a specific portion of a song or recording and repeating it indefinitely. So in this case, our selected spots between around measure 33 and around measure 40. one thing I like to do, especially if I'm having a hard time hearing a particular instrument, I like to drag it up more dramatically so I can hear it coming out of the mix more prominently, and then drag it down to where I think it will fit best with the other instruments. Now, one thing I am considering here is making sure that the melody is what is most prominent. I want that to be the center point rather than the drums or the chords or even the basses. So I am adjusting the volume levels based on that. All right, perfect. And now do you see how drastic the knob changes are? I think that the knobs are just so different here because the default volumes of all of these instruments are so different. So in order for the volumes to have a common denominator, some instruments will need to be louder and some instruments will need to be quieter. So whenever I have something like this, I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Nice. So we've got the first half of this going. Now what we're going to cover is what's known as EQ. So when I'm doing EQ, I am adjusting the frequencies that each of these instruments play at. So there's like low frequencies, which is like the lowest of the low. Think of your basses, the kicks, and then there's the so-called mids or the middle frequencies. I think of the chords going here, and sometimes even the clap. And then there's the high frequencies. Like I'm thinking melodies, especially like cymbals like hats and things like that. So almost like a baritone, an alto, and a soprano. That's not necessarily technical, but those three categories are, I think, a good way of thinking about it. Now, I like to go in a similar order here just to stay organized. I'm going to start with the kick. I'm just going to, in order to start the EQ process, I'm going to scooch over to this side, where all of the slots are open over here. Now I'm going to click this arrow, left click it under slot 1, and then go down to Fruity Parametric EQ 2. And I might have to minimize this here. Yes. And then this screen pops up. Now when we play, we're going to see the frequencies of the particular instrument that's playing. So, for example, let me go ahead and make this detach so it stays on top. I'm just going to control click. So this is the only one playing. Doing the control click is very much universal in FL Studio. So see where there is frequencies in the kick. Now I like to have kind of bring the high frequencies and just keep it playing, like just bring it down. Drag the number 7, left click, and scooch down. I hear a double. I think this is it right here. So I'm just going to scooch this over. Okay, maybe it is my headphones. I don't know. And boom. Let's see how it sounds with the rest of the track. This on. You can bring up the 1 here, the lower frequencies. All right. Now let's go back, reopen the mixer, And let's go over to the clap and do the same thing here, except I'm going to focus on keeping it mostly in the middle slash high frequencies. Let's see here. Fruity parametric. Now we're just gonna minimize that, and we can close out of the kick one. See what frequencies it's covering. So the clap is mostly in the higher frequencies here. Now I don't want to totally get rid of the clap. Like, here, let me isolate it here. If we bring up the one or move it to the right really far, you hear how there's less of a fullness to it. That's because it's cutting off a lot of the lower frequencies, so only the higher frequencies are allowed to play here. Now that's a little too much. Let's bring it back. And then I'm also going to cut down some of the high frequencies. I realize there's a change here, so I guess not. Just bring it down a little bit so that the melody has a chance to kind of shine over up here in the hi-hats. Okay, now let's hear what it sounds like all together. Now, a lot of the times I think it's best to do the EQ while all of the instruments are playing, so that I can hear how it sounds in relation to everything else. So I'm going to do that with the rest of these instruments here. Just do the same things. Click on slot 1, open Fruity Parametric EQ. Now this one is very much a high frequency situation. So I'm just going to click and drag number 1. And I think we can bring up the open hat. Now, if you are making background music for a YouTube video or something like that, I like to bring down the higher frequencies because that's usually where voices sit, especially female voices. So sometimes, like if it's really high like this, whenever I pop the song into my video editor, I can hear the high frequencies, like especially the cymbals, kind of clash with my voice. Now, there are ways to do this within the editing software, which I might make a separate video on that later. But this is also, if you'd like, you can also bring some of the higher frequencies down here as well. All right, awesome. Now let's continue with the closed hat. And actually, I kind of want a similar curve like the one I have for the open hat for the closed hat. So here's what we can do. Under the open hat, Fruity Parametric EQ, I'm just going to click this arrow / caret, and then I'm going to left click on the Save Preset As, and then drag it onto the closed hat. And boom, see here, it copied the curve from the open hat to the closed hat. And the closed hat has its very own Fruity Parametric EQ that we can modify independently without it changing the information on the open hat. Now, I want to bring this over a little more. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start from the total beginning of the drop so I can hear the transition when the closed hats come in and see if that's dramatic enough with the volumes and the EQs I've set so far. I think the open hat's still a little too loud. Now, so far, I think it has a much cleaner sound because the frequencies are not clashing together. So, for example, the kick is mostly in the lower frequencies, the lower and midpoint frequencies. Shoot, I'll bring this a little over. So that means the high frequencies aren't really coming out for the kick. And then that leaves space for the clap where the low frequencies are out, but it's kind of thriving in the middle to the higher frequencies. And then for the hi-hats, we'll just use the open hat here. We're going to close out of the kick. The open hat is mostly in the high frequencies. And you can also see the names of the frequencies over here. So you got sub, bass, low, mid, high mid, PRS, no clue what that is, and treble. And these are the actual numbers over here. I never really use this, but this is a good guide if you do have any experience with that. I don't have that much, so yeah. So since this one's in the high frequencies, we cut out the lower frequencies and a lot of the mids. So the hats shine mostly up here while giving space for the kick and the clap to shine more down over here. In other words, the frequencies are not overlapping as much, which helps to make a cleaner sounding mix. Let's continue with EQing the bass here. Go back. Now for the bass, I'm going to pull up the parametric EQ again. Now we see that it's in the low frequencies here. So what we're going to do, we're going to get rid of the middle and high frequencies. I'm really just trying to pull out its natural frequencies and get rid of all of the extra ones, if that makes sense. Awesome. And now let's do the same thing. We might need to bring it up a little bit. Now I'm going to copy this into the bass wide in mixing track number 10 right here. So left click, save preset as, and then drag it into number 10 over here. Now see how it goes more to the mids here? The wide bass sounds growly and whatnot because it does go up to a bit of a higher frequency. So now I'm just going to isolate it by doing a control click on the mixer. And now what I'm also going to do is experiment with trying to click and drag up some of these other frequencies here too, so I can hear more of the wobble, if that makes sense. Okay, so this bass, usually for basses, I'd usually leave it in this square part between like this blank one and the bass / low mid. But since I can only really hear the growl when there is more high frequencies here, I'm just gonna leave this up here. And I'm gonna unisolate it here. I'm gonna bring these back down a little bit. All right, and then for the sub bass, I'm going to do the save preset as from the simple bass on track 9. We're on mixer track number 9, and then scooch it over to mixer track number 11 so it copies. Let's close out of this one over here. Now see how the sub bass is mostly in the sub spot? Sub and bass, that's where I want it. Just gonna bring that over some. And even pull some of this up. Honestly, this one doesn't really need much. And then lastly, the tom, let me hear it, see if I really need to do anything with it. Okay, just boost the volume a little bit. Now let's go over to the chords here, see what we can do over here. Parametric EQ. All right, since the chords and same thing with the melody here, these are not basses, so I'm pretty much gonna automatically get rid of the sub and bass here. And also since they're chords, they're not really gonna be melody either. So I'm getting rid of both the really low and the really high frequencies. Let's hear what it sounds like. Now let me hear it individual. I think that melds a lot better with the rest of the instruments as well, especially with the piano. Now I'm going to copy this, do the save preset as, and copy it to the piano chords over here. You know what? I actually like how open it is. We can disable the parametric EQ on any of the instruments here by just clicking this green circle, and now it's not going to be in effect. And the default settings in this plugin here won't be used. Yeah, I think I like that. Yeah, I think I like that a lot better. So we're just going to delete this from here. So we're just going to left click and then click delete. Perfect. Don't forget to Control S to save it. And then we're going to move on to the melody. Same sort of thing. I'm going to get rid of the bass automatically here. Let's isolate it, hear what it sounds like by itself. Okay, and then I'm going to copy this over to the pluck. You know what? I honestly want to bring up some of the closed hat here. Just a tad. Bring down some of that pluck. And bring back some of the mids here, because it sounds a little too punchy for me, a little too high pitched for me. So okay, hold on. We gotta do something about the okay. Alright, I like that better. I like how more open it is. If I don't think if it needs like EQ, I most of the time don't really add it. But yeah. Like honestly, I don't think this one needs it. Yeah, we can get rid of it. We're just gonna delete this one, the EQ off the pluck. And you know what? Let's just scooch this over to the left. And we're just going to do some final adjustments here. Like in the chord, the simpler chords, just be less drastic in cutting out the high and low frequencies. Okay, all right. I think that the piano chords needs a little more life to them, but not in the form of another instrument. So I'm going to reopen the mixing track here, and I'm going to add an effect on here. Go to the piano chords, and it's not going to be a parametric EQ. I'm going to re-enable this. I'm going to go here and add reverb. So reverb just almost makes it sound like you're singing in a bathroom or in a cathedral or something. Here, I'll show you. I'm going to isolate the instrument, and let's go to presets and hit cathedral. Here's what it sounds like without reverb. And with reverb. Doesn't it fill out the sound? Now, I'm going to also do, just copy this reverb to the pluck as well, just to help fill it out a little bit. So what I'm gonna do, same thing like we did with the parametric EQ, just left click, save preset as, and then drag it into melody pluck. And then we're gonna turn this one back on too. And one thing, there are like a ton of different plugins. These generators are effects generators. These are also a type of plugin. There are a ton of these on here. The only ones I mainly use are the EQ and the reverb mainly. There are a few other ones, but those seem to be my go-to. All right, let us hear what it sounds like. Solo. Let's go over to the... Actually, let me change the melody pluck to... Let's go over here. Okay, I want the effect to be less dramatic. So let's bring it down a little bit. We can use this knob wheel and just left click and hold and move the mouse downward. Now let's hear what it sounds like all together. Okay, my first issue, let's move this back over here. Don't know how I screwed that up. And I think that helped open it up quite a bit and fill in some of the dead space. All right, guys, that's awesome. You have made a song in 5 days. That's incredible. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to challenge you to create your very own from scratch with your own idea of a bass line, chords, melody, drums, and feel free to reference these videos whenever you need a little bit of help. I've made sure to put chapters in all 5, and I've also linked the playlist down in the description as well. All right, so I have also included the project files in the description. So that includes my entire file here in FL Studio that you'll be able to open. Also, I've included a folder of the samples I've used as well as my backup files. My backup files will include previous versions of this song, maybe if you wanted to see those. So don't forget to go down to the description and check those out as well. All right, the final thing I'm going to show you is how you can export it. In other words, share it in a shareable file format so you can show it off to your friends or really anybody else. You can post it on the internet, whatever you think. So what we're going to do, we're going to left click on File, going to hover on Export. Now, a couple of things. There are a whole bunch of file names over here, but there are only 2 that we're going to talk about today. So the MP3 file, that is what I would consider a more universal type of file for audio. Now, MP3, it has a bit of a lower quality compared to the WAV file, which I'll talk about in a second. But that means the file size is a little smaller. Usually I can't really tell too much of a difference, but the WAV file extension, you may have seen it also as .wav. This is the highest quality audio file you can get here in FL Studio. So since it's higher quality, it would probably take up more space on your computer, but it's standard. So I'm going to go ahead and export it as a WAV file, and then I'm going to go ahead and save it. You can save it really anywhere. And then just rename it and click save. And then I like to leave these settings as usual. I don't know the difference between the tails here, so I just have wrap remainder. Make sure that the rest of your playlist is deselected. Otherwise, the time and the length is going to show weird. And here, I'll just show you real quick. Like if I were to select just the drop here on accident per se, and then go up here and click export, see how it says the length is 15 bars and shows it as song selection? That's only 26 seconds of our entire song. I have made that mistake before, so just be careful with that. If you do see this, just go ahead and click the X, and then all we have to do is click Control D to deselect. And then we'll go back up here. Total time is 2.5 minutes, 90 bars. And see the disk space, it takes up 26 megabytes. So just make sure you have that on your computer. WAV, that's correct. And I leave all of these other ones the same, except if you want to upload it to a third-party service. I haven't really explored this much, but you can upload it to SoundCloud. And if you want to share it, then we're going to go ahead and click Start. And then just wait for this bar down here to load. Now this is going to take a little bit because it's a full song and it's WAV. And if you did ever want to cancel, you can just click abort, but I don't want to do it. Perfect. And then now it just opened up where it's located in my file system here. Thanks for sticking around. And I hope this helps you create your own songs for background music or anything else you're working on. All right. Bye!